Okay, I am here in equations number 2, Google Jam. And on number 1, I have this equation right here. Now, before I solve this equation, just a few reminders on inverse operations. Inverse operations are two operations that undo each other. So addition and subtraction would be inverse operations because addition undoes subtraction and subtraction undoes addition. Multiplication and division are inverse operations because multiplication undoes division and division undoes multiplication. The number one rule for equations is this: whatever you do to one side of the equal sign, you must also do the same thing to the other side. So you always do the same thing to both sides of the equation. We have here this helpful phrase that I like to use called every cowboy gets nervous sometimes to help us remember the 5 steps to solve equations. And I'll go through these as we move through the equations. A little note here: must show every step to receive full credit. Okay, you have to show your work. Okay, and your work must make sense. If your work does not make sense and somehow you got the correct answer, you will not get credit for the assignment. Your work must make sense. I must be able to read it. Circle your final answer. Okay, in this equation, I have x over 8. You see the horizontal fraction bar. That's x divided by -8 equals -3. I can read that horizontal fraction bar as divided by. And so if I follow the 5 steps to solve equations, the E on every reminds us to eliminate the parentheses. So when looking at an equation, I should ask myself, do I see parentheses? Here in number 1, obviously you don't. So I don't do step 1. There are no parentheses to eliminate. So I go on to step 2. The C on cowboy reminds me to combine. Combine what? Combine like terms. Combining like terms is like crossing the street. You look left on the left side of the equal sign, and then you look right on the right side of the equal sign. So on the left side, all I have is this term right here, x over -8. There are no other x terms to combine it with. Then after I look left, then I look right. On the right side, I only have one term, and that's -3. There are no other constants to combine it with. So I can't do step 2 either. Now going to step 3, the G on gets reminds us to get the variable on one side of the equal sign. And it already is in this equation because I have an x on the left side. There is no x over here on the right side that I must move over here. And so my variable x is already on one side of the equal sign. So this brings me to step 4. The N on nervous reminds me to get the numbers on the other side of the equal sign. And so whatever side your variable is on, in this case it's the left side, my numbers need to be on the right side, the other side of the equal sign. But in this case, I need the 5th and final step, which is the S on sometimes reminds us to solve. Solve means I'm going to multiply or divide, whatever inverse operation is needed. And in this case, I need to multiply. Why? Well, I'm taking x, my variable, my unknown number, and I'm dividing it by -8. And to undo that division, I would multiply. Now the question is, what number do I multiply both sides of the equation by? Well, I multiply both sides of the equation by this number right here in the denominator, which is not 8. That number right there is not 8. It is -8. How do I know it's negative? Well, do you see the negative sign in front of the 8? That'll tell you it's negative. So I multiply both sides of the equation by this number, which is -8. And so here's how I'm going to show multiplication. I'm going to do this. I'm going to write -8 over here to the side. I'm going to put a dot for multiplication. I'm going to put my -8 in parentheses to show multiplication. Now, -8 is like -8 over 1. Would you agree? -8 divided by 1, that's still -8. And remember, if I multiply the left side by -8, what must I do to the right side? I must do the same thing, right? That's the golden rule for equations. And so I'm going to multiply by -8. Okay, on both sides. Now, what happens over here on the left side? If I have a -8 in the numerator and a -8 in the denominator, these, what we call, simplify to not 0, but 1, right? If you have some number over that exact same number, that is 1. And so what I'm left with is 1 times x. 1 times x is just x. And so now I have my variable x by itself on the left side of the equal sign. I bring my equal sign straight down, and x is equal to -3 times -8. these have same signs. I'm not going to say same signs add. That wouldn't make any sense, would it? If I'm multiplying, would I say same signs add? No. I would say same signs positive, different signs negative. So same signs, my answer is positive, whatever 3 times 8 is. And of course, that is 24. So x equals 24. I will circle my final answer. I can always check to make sure this answer actually makes sense by taking this number that I found, 24, and plugging it back in for the variable x. So is 24 divided by negative 8 equal to negative 3? Yes, it is. Okay, so x equals 24 is my answer. Number 2, negative 6p equals negative 276. So I can go through the 5 steps. Are there parentheses? No. Are there like terms? No. Is the variable already on one side? Yes. So I don't do step 3 either. Step 4, get my numbers on the other side. They already are. Step 5, get the variable by itself by solving. So I have to undo whatever 6p means. Now, what does negative 6p mean? What does it mean? Well, I know that if I have a number written right next to a variable, that's understood to be multiplication. And so to get p by itself, I got to undo this multiplication. So how am I going to undo multiplication? What operation can I use? What's the opposite of multiplication? That would be division, right? So I know I'm going to divide both sides by some number. Now the question is, what number am I going to divide both sides by? Some of you may say 6, and you would be wrong. 6 is not what I'm going to divide both sides by. What number is in front of p? It's not 6. It is negative 6. Do you see the negative sign in front of the 6? That tells you it is negative 6. And so I'm going to divide both sides of this equation by negative 6. Here's how I'm going to show division. I'm going to use a horizontal fraction bar. I'm going to divide the left side by negative 6, and I'm going to divide the right side by negative 6, because the golden rule for equations tells me I always do the same thing to both sides of the equation. Now, what happens over here on the left if I have a negative 6 in the top, in the numerator, and a negative 6 in the bottom, in the denominator? Like we saw in the last problem, if you have some number over that exact same number, these numbers simplify to 1. And so I'm left with 1 times p, or simply just p. Bring my equal sign straight down. And I have a negative number divided by a negative number. So they have same signs, right? And if they have the same signs, again, I'm going to use my multiply divide rules, which tell me same signs positive, different signs negative. So I know my answer is going to be positive something because I'm dividing numbers with the same sign. And so for here, number 2, I got to figure out what is 276 divided by 6, and that's going to give me my answer. It's going to be positive whatever 276 divided by 6 is, and I will leave that for you to figure out. Number 3, I have 37 minus 3y equals 16. Question number 1, do you see parentheses? No, you don't, so you don't need to eliminate them. Step 2, combine like terms. Let's look left. On the left side, I have 37 minus 3y. Are those like terms? Well, negative 3y, of course, has a y in it. Does 37 have a y in it? No, it does not. So those are not like terms and cannot be combined. So now let's look at the right side of the equation, which is just 16. Are there any other constants over here to combine that with? No, there's not. So I can't do step 2 either, which is combine like terms. So I go on to step 3. Get the variable on one side of the equal sign. Is it already on one side of the equal sign? I see a y over here on the left side. Is there a y over here on the right side? No, there's not. And so step 3, get the variable on one side. This is already completed as well. Step 4, get the numbers on the other side. This step is not done yet. As you can see, here's my equal sign right there. Okay, and of course there is a left side to the equation and a right side to the equation. There is no middle. The equal sign is the middle of the equation. So if my y variable is on the left side, I need this number right here, 37, to be on the other side. So how am I going to move 37 to the other side? Now remember, when you moving, you're going to use inverse operations. Moving means you're going to either add or subtract. Move means add or subtract. So how am I going to get 37 to cancel on this side, to be 0 on this side, and move to the other side? Well, if I add 37, that's not going to work, is it? 37 plus 37, that does not give me 0. So I'm going to need to subtract 37 because 37 minus 37 is 0. Now, the golden rule for equations, if I subtract 37 from the left side, I should also subtract 37 from the right side. I'm going to draw a horizontal equal sign across the entire problem just like that. These 37s cancel, equals 0. So I'm actually not going to write 0 right here. I'm going to draw a diagonal line through them because they cancel out. Now, on the left side of the equal sign, I have one term remaining, and this term is this term right here. Now, the question is, what is that term? If you said 3y, you are incorrect. That term is not 3y. That term is negative 3y. Why is it negative? Well, do you see the sign in front of the term? That negative sign? That minus sign? It's yes, subtraction. It's also negative. And so that sign must always travel with the term. It must always travel with the term. This term gets brought straight down. So I must write negative 3y. Negative 3y. I bring my equal sign straight down. On the right side of the equation, I have 16 minus 37. Have to be able to operate with negative numbers, right? Different signs, subtract, keep the big guy. I should get negative 21. So now I'm on my fifth and final step, which is to solve. I have my variable on the left, my numbers on the right. Now I need to solve for y. So if move means add or subtract, solve means multiply or divide, whatever inverse operation is needed. Now again, like we saw in the previous problem, what does negative 3y mean? Well, it means negative 3 times y, right? A number written right next to a variable is multiplication. How do you undo multiplication? Division. So what are you going to divide both sides by? 3. Wrong. Not 3. Why is it not 3? Do you see the negative sign in front of the 3? Again, that tells you it's negative 3. And so what I'm going to do is divide the left side by negative 3. Do you see how I use the horizontal fraction bar for division? I would strongly encourage that. If I divide the left side by negative 3, what do you think I should do to the right side? You got it. Divide by negative 3. What happens over here? If you have negative 3 up top and negative 3 on the bottom, those simplify to 1. So I'm going to draw a diagonal or a 1 through them. And I'm left with 1 times y or just y. I bring my equal sign straight down. And over here I have negative 21 divided by negative 3. They have the same sign, right? They're both negative. So would I say same signs add? No, I'm not adding. I am dividing, right? So I'm going to use my multiply divide rules, which tell me same signs positive. And 21 divided by 3 I know is 7. So y equals 7, circle, final answer. Everything you see on my screen right here, this would be considered showing me your work step by step. So this is exactly what I should see on your Jamboard. We're going to do one more right here, number 4. And you'll finish the rest of them. I have 3 equals x over 25 plus 6. Step 1, do you see parentheses? Nope, so you don't need to eliminate them. Step 2, combine like terms. I look left, I have one term. Can't combine it with anything else. On the right side, I have an x term and a constant. Those cannot be combined. Step 3, get the variable on one side of the equal sign. It already is, right? It's on the right side. Do you see a variable over here on the left side? No, you don't. So step 3 is already done as well. Step 4, get the numbers on the other side. So if my x is right here on the right side of the equation, right? Because here's my equal sign, and this would be the left side, and of course this is the right side. So if my x is on the right side, where should this number be? You got it. I got to move it over here. And so since I'm adding 6 over here, how am I going to undo addition? Subtraction, right? What am I going to subtract? I'm going to subtract 6 from the right side and, of course, from the left side. Draw your equal sign across the problem. These 6's, of course, cancel, right? 6 minus 6, that's 0. So those terms are gone. On the left side of the equal sign, 3 minus 6, that's negative 3, right? Different sign, subtract, keep the big guy. Equal sign comes straight down, and you're left with this term on the right side, which is x over 25. Okay? So I have my variable on the right side, my numbers on the other. Fifth and final step is to solve for x. How am I going to get x by itself? How am I going to isolate x? Well, what, again, does this fraction bar mean? It means division, right? And so how do you undo division? Multiplication. And what are you going to multiply both sides by? you're going to multiply both sides by this number in the denominator. So I'm going to multiply, I'll put a dot for multiplication. I multiply the right side by 25 and the left side by 25. All right, I'm going to put the negative 3 in parentheses here. Now, over here, 25 is like 25 over 1, so you have a 25 up top and a 25 in the bottom. Those simplify to 1, right? It's like 1 over 1. So on the right side, all I have left is x. I'm going to bring it down. And on the left side, I have 25 times negative 3. These have different signs, so I would not say different signs subtract because I'm multiplying, so that wouldn't make any sense. I'm going to say same signs positive, different signs negative. So I know my answer is going to be negative because they have different signs. Now what's 25 times 3? That would be 75, right? So this is my final answer. X is negative 75. So that is the first 4 I worked out for you. You try 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, show all your work, circle your final answer, and when you are finished, it tells you here how to turn it in. Okay, so you're going to not click the share button. You're going to go back to Google Classroom, click View Assignment, and click the Turn In button.